Welcome back to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. Here's your host, Brother Robert Johnson.
This is episode 297. Welcome back. This week, we've got a couple great pieces that I'm pretty excited to read with you. And before we get into them, just would like to remind everybody about 300, Freemasonry's legacy, Freemasonry's future, just weeks away. We've got some new announcements. If you're listening to the show and you really want to come, check this out. June 23rd. I told you guys, the more people that sign up, the more capital we have to schedule more things for the day. So as we've gotten more people to buy a ticket, we've been able to secure some really cool stuff. What stuff? How about this? Scottish Rite House of the Temple tours from 2 to 5 p.m. on June 23rd, the Friday before the event. So for the early arrivals and early registration, anybody who shows up at the House of the Temple at 2 p.m. on June 23rd, you're with the TMR group, you're going to get a tour. That evening, we're going to have pizza, some fellowship, and we're going to be doing some Facebook Live. June 24th, again, we're doing the welcome and short introductions, a brief history of the United Grand Lodge of England by Mike Hambrecht, a craftsman's journey with Stephen L. Harrison. We're going to do a lunch. We'll have 3 breakout sessions with Masonic trivia mixed in. We're going to have a cocktail hour. We'll have a festive board with the speaker, Mark Tabbert. There'll be a meal and some closing remarks, and eventually afterglow, which will consist of more fellowship, some additional adult beverages, and it's going to be pretty fantastic. I'm really excited about it. I hope you can tell. There's going to be some other things that we're going to surprise you with. So if you want to know and you want to be a part of it, you got to get a ticket. Show up. Get your ticket at theMasonicRoundtable.com/300 or visit WCYpodcast.com and click on 300 Years of Freemasonry. Will there be hotels at a discounted rate? Yes. We did sell out of the initial block of rooms, but they've extended it. It's $159 per night. That covers for the weekend. You're going to want to get on that just as soon as possible. It's right around the corner, guys. You're going to want to call them. It's the Residence Inn at Alexandria, Old Town, Duke Street. And you're going to want to ask them to extend to you a room at that price of $159 per night. Vendors? You betcha. There's going to be some vendors there. We're getting a final list together, which will be able to hopefully give you some names very soon. Can I bring my friend, wife, spouse, partner? Absolutely. However, this is not a tiled event, which means anybody can come, even the profane. If you have an interest in Freemasonry, come on down. It's cool. We don't care. It's going to be awesome. There's going to be lots of people there who have an intimate knowledge of Freemasonry, who are involved in fraternity, who are involved in other fraternities. It's a really awesome mixer. It's going to be great. I should say that there will not be other programming going on. So if you're not into Masonry, you might not be into the programming. So just keep that in mind. Anybody can come. You just have to have a ticket. The attire for the event, well, we are going to be business casual for the majority of the day. So that means, likely pants and a button-up shirt. Tie is optional. Bow tie is optional. Points for bow ties. Now, I should also mention that night, though, for the dinner, we're looking at having coat and tie for the dinner. So please plan accordingly. It doesn't mean you have to have a suit, but coat and tie. So that's the event that's at the end of June. What about stuff before then? Well, if you're into it, on June 7th at noon in Jefferson City, Missouri at the York Rite Grand Sessions, I'll be presenting a topic on the word. Over lunch, it should be pretty good, which is the Tetragrammaton. I've done the presentation quite a few times, and we're going to do a really cool session with that. June 8th, the very next day, Chicago, Illinois, Hesperia Lodge. I'm going to do a topic called Connecting Masons Through Technology, which again should be pretty fun. June 13th at Wheeling, Illinois, at DC Krieger Lodge, we're doing something called Long Been in Darkness, an exploration of traditional candidate preparation. So I'll be speaking along with my good friend, worshipful brother Scott S. Duball, who is the education officer for the state of Illinois, and also my good friend Spence Haman, and we're going to do a special meditation session with Brother Ray Espiritu. So look forward to that. June 21st, leading up to that event in Alexandria, I'll be in Columbus, Ohio at York 563 at Northwest Masonic Temple, and I'll be doing Esoterics 101. You can visit their website at york563.org. That's york563.org. And then I'll be in October somewhere, I'm speaking. I don't know exactly where yet. All right. Now with that, we're going to go into our first piece this week. It's called Ecclesiastes, an interpretation by Tavitt Smith. This actually comes out of the November 2011 issue of the Living Stones magazine, both of these articles actually. And what we'll do is I will make sure that this magazine, along with a link to a page where you can get all of them for free, because Worshipful Brother Robert Hurd is pretty amazing and threw them out there for everybody. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes, but specifically I will have this issue of the magazine in a PDF form in the bonus features in the app. And the app is free. You can download it by going to the podcast source app, and while in it, search for Whence Came You. Now, here we go. Ecclesiastes, an interpretation by Tavitt Smith. Brethren, we are told that Freemasonry is a philosophic system comprised of allegory and symbolism, the 3 degrees, entered apprentice, fellowcraft, and master mason, reflecting the stages of our birth, life, and eventual demise and rebirth. Our beautiful ceremonies are filled with philosophic truths and are times to quietly reflect upon our own lives and our responsibilities to ourselves and to others. Much of our quiet and dignified ceremonies is hidden in allegory. The use of allegory to hide meaning from the unqualified or undeserving goes back well into ancient times. By veiling spiritual truths in poetry or symbols, man has found that some of the highest truths could be placed out in the open to become part of history, while protecting their hidden meanings from people who would denigrate or ridicule things that they were not ready to understand. As the Freemason candidate circumambulates the lodge, making the same allegorical journey as the sun, moon, and stars, making the passage of time, we are allegorically reminded of our own journey through life, marking time and passing from one stage to another. One of the most beautiful allegorical illustrations of our life journey is familiar to all of our brethren, and is taken from the 12th chapter from Ecclesiastes. This beautiful and allegorical poem is said to be written by King Solomon himself and depicts the last stages of our journey here on earth. It is a stark and hauntingly realistic account of our passage through the stages of old age. As it is written, verse 1, "Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them." Verse 2, "While the sun, or the light, or the moon, or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain." Verse 3, "In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened." Verse 4, "And the doors shall be shut in the streets, when the sound of the grinding is low, and shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low." Verse 5, "Also, when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fears shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail, because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets." Verse 6, "Or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern." Verse 7, "Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God, who gave it." This poem from Ecclesiastes is powerful and memorable as it is, but is there a deeper hidden meaning to it? Many believe that there is, and once known, the verses carry an indelible message to all that hear it. There are several interpretations, but most are similar to what follows. Verse 1 and 2, "Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. While the sun, or the light, or the moon, or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain." So these verses admonish us to recognize and know the grand architect of the universe while we are still young, before we age and lose our joy of living, while our thoughts are clear and sound. Verse 3, "In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened." Well, it begins the depiction of our journey into old age with references to our youthful posture now bowing in age, and our teeth, the grinders, and eyesight, windows failing. Verse 4, "And the doors shall be shut in the streets, when the sound of the grinding is low, and shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low." This continues with man's aging by reflecting upon the loss of his hearing and the changes which occur in the timbre of an elder's voice. Verse 5, "Also when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and the fear shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and the desire shall fail, because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets." Well, this refers to the unsteadiness and loss of balance to which we will eventually succumb. The reference to the almond tree, which blossoms white, is thought to be a reference to the graying of the hair. The reference to the grasshopper is thought to be symbolic of man's struggle to overcome diversity, now more of a burden than it was when he was youthful. Man goeth to his long home is a thinly veiled allegory, not needing interpretation. Verse 6, or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. This depicts the final stages when our minds and thoughts are affected. The silver cord being our spinal column, the golden bowl being our minds, the pitcher being our heart, and the wheel broken at the cistern being our ability to control our bladders. This allegorical journey into old age, this admonition to know the grand architect of the universe now while we still have time, is harsh and cold. But it is an admonition that, to my eyes, is filled with compassion and love. This journey into the old age is not a solitary journey. It is a journey which we must all take, a journey made necessary simply because we have been given life. It is an admonition that life is precious, and we must not wait to know the grand architect. Verse 7, then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. The final verse holds the most mystery. It says that all of us are sitting here in this lodge came from the soil of the earth, out of the dust, and that we shall return to it, and that our spirits shall return from whence they came. I'd like to end with a favorite quote of mine from a spiritual writer, Brian Swim, that encompasses both the mystery of life and its inherent beauty and love. As you read this, remember verse 7 from the 12th chapter of Ecclesiastes, then shall the dust return to the earth as it was. Quote, you have molten rock, and then, all by itself, it transforms into a human, mother caring for her child. That's a rather astounding transformation. Of course, it takes 4 billion years. You've got silica, you've got magnesium, you've got all the elements of rock, and it becomes translucent, blue eyes and beautiful brown hair, and this deep sense of love and concern, and even sacrifice for a child. End quote from Brian Swim. Brethren, I hope you take away from this little essay how sacred and mysterious life is, and how reverently each day that we have been given should be treated. As Freemasons, we are reminded in symbol and allegory that life is precious, and that we are continually on a journey to the east, to light, back, to the grand architect of the universe. Respectfully submitted, Brother Tabit Smith. All right, now, I just liked that piece because I love taking apart the old language and exposing what it could mean. There's no secrets that we spoke in allegory and we spoke in poetry to veil what is not to be shown to the neophytes or to the profane. It takes a mind who can decipher the symbolry to give us exactly the lessons we need to learn. And I just found that piece really apropos. Now, the next piece is the very next article in the magazine. This issue is great, as all of them are. And specifically, I love it because this is part of the mystery that I'm always looking for. The legend of Hiram and the legend of Noah and all these things. I love biblical history, but what I love more is the deciphering of the words and what they meant in that time. So, with that, Noah and Freemasonry by Brother Scott A. Schwartzberg. Centuries ago, there were other legends associated with Masonry, besides the current legend of Hiram Abiff. At one time, Noah was considered one of the early Grand Masters of Freemasonry. This may be discounted by those who are not familiar with the Bible. How can the guy who built the big boat be comparable to the guy who planned the Temple of Solomon? Noah had an enormous task before him. To make an ark of gopher wood, he was provided guidance in this by the direct order of God. Much of the temple was constructed with specifications similar to that of the tabernacle Moses erected in the desert to protect the Ark of the Covenant. Captain George Smith, in The Use and Abuse of Freemasonry, published in 1783, says that Masons, after the flood, were known as Noachide, and afterward sages, or wise men. According to Albert Mackey, before the flood, there was a system of religious instruction, which, from the resemblance of its legendary and symbolic character to that of Freemasonry, had been called by some authors antediluvian Masonry. This system was preserved by Noah, and after the deluge, was communicated by him to his immediate descendants. This system was lost at the time of the dispersion of mankind and corrupted by the pagans in their mysteries, but subsequently it was purified, and Freemasonry, as we now have it, was organized by the king of Israel at the time of the building of the temple. Another great building is related to Noah. the descendants of Noah, about 101 years after the flood, contrived to build the Tower of Babel, or Babel, in the valley of Shinar, that they could not make for themselves a name. 53 years was spent in the construction before the language of the builders was confused, and they were scattered throughout the world, the dispersion mentioned by Mackey. Nimrod, king of Babylonia and Assyria, was the grand master at this time and had many cities constructed after this dispersion, and the science of geometry was preserved in the area between the Tigris and Euphrates by the Magi. According to the York constitutions, likely written after Anderson's, the descendants of Noah brought their construction skills and sciences to all the nations of the world after the dispersion. Mackey compares the two legends here by reducing that of the Tower of Babel from the source of Freemasonry to the confused state of darkness an initiate finds himself in before seeking light at the building of the Temple of Solomon. As in our current legend, he does not agree with the characterization himself, as the Babylon of the Tower of Babel was indeed the birthplace of the sciences and architecture. The cities of Assyria, according to legend, were built under the guidance of Nimrod and under the direction of Ashur, the son of Shem, and therefore grandson of Noah. This legend was used in Freemasonry until the beginning of the 18th century, perhaps coinciding with the formation of the Grand Lodge in 1717. Anderson did not believe that Ashur was a proper name, but was instead referencing to the building of the cities of Assyria. These earlier legends may have had some basis in fact, as was confirmed by the discovery of fragments of cuneiform covered tablets unearthed in the ruins of the cities of Babylon in the late 19th century. Anderson, in his Constitutions first published in 1723, called a Mason, quote, a true Noachide, or Noachite, as it was believed that Noah and his 3 sons were all Masons, which terms were still in use at that time of Mackey. Shem, one of Noah's sons and the source of the term Semite for his descendants, cultivated the art of masonry. Abraham, the head of one branch of Shem's descendants, learned in geometry and the other sciences in his Chaldean homeland, communicated that knowledge while in Egypt, and to his descendants, the Israelites. The children of Ham, another son, carried the knowledge of masonry to Canaan and also to Egypt, where it was brought by his son Mizraim. The 3rd son of Japheth was supposed to have sent his sons to Europe, although nothing is known of their deeds as regards to masonry. George Oliver, Doctor of Divinity, was another proponent of the Noachite legend as the source of Freemasonry. Preston, one of the authors whose work was adopted by most Grand Lodges in the United States, did not accept this legend, which is why the Noachite legend is little known among American Freemasons. This name survives in the modern and ancient and accepted Scottish Rite, where the 21st degree in the southern jurisdiction is titled Noachite or Perusian Knight, and the Patriarch Noachite in the northern jurisdiction, although the current ritual itself is only about a Perusian Knight. The former ritual discusses how Noachite masonry is far older than the era of Hiram or Solomonian masonry, and in fact it was not originally necessary to be Master Mason to attain this degree, as knights of many different orders were initiated along with masons descended from Hiram while on crusade. This degree was originally part of the rite of perfection formed by the Council of Emperors in the East and West in France at about 1758. As it abandons the Hiramic legend completely to focus on the building of the Tower of Babel, when revising the ritual, Albert Pike based his revision on the medieval German secret tribunal known as the Vemgericht. The Graham manuscript of 1726 refers to the 3 sons of Noah venturing to their father's grave to retrieve a secret. On reopening the grave, the sons attempted 3 times to raise a body, each one using one of the methods and grips as in the current version of the Master Mason degree, including the 5 points of fellowship, although not named as such. The sons made comments on the condition of the body, the first exclaiming that there is still marrow in this bone, the second saying it was just dry bone, and the third exclaiming it stinketh. The expression that there is yet marrow may figuratively mean that there is goodness or the vital part of the essence, and even though Noah was dead and buried, his bones retained his righteousness. It may also be a metaphor for concealing the secret of Freemasonry, that is, as marrow is hidden in the bones, so also should fellowship of masonry be hidden within the mason. One suggestion for the replacement of this legend with that with which we are now familiar is that the story of Hiram Abiff contains elements that the death of the patriarch Noah lacks: betrayal, violent death, martyrdom, and revenge. The legend of Noah is still within our current ritual, although it may be indirect. His father was Lamech, possibly the same Lamech who was the father of Tubal-Cain, the first instructor of artificers in brass and iron. These men were probably at least half-brothers and may have been the same person. Many of the names in the Bible are not actual proper names, but are titles or epithets to describing a person. Tubal-Cain instructed the artificers of brass and iron. Noah instructed his 3 sons in the art of masonry, preserving the craft. According to Rashi, the medieval commenter on the Bible, Noah was the inventor of the plow. All right, there you have it, some really cool stuff. I will mention that this article was really cool because it actually touched on some really interesting things that an earlier episode that I had to redact touched on. So you're kind of getting that information from a different source that was actually written earlier, which is cool. So I hope you enjoyed those. That's it for this week, but before we go, I just would like to remind you that you can head on over to the midnightfreemasons.org and read 3 articles every single week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Just published an article on the right of adoption, which was interesting. It touches on the Order of the Eastern Star, which was pretty interesting. We had a really cool piece called A Fine Paradox, Christianity and Freemasonry, a revisit, which was actually published back in April of 2012 and was actually the subject of a Masonic Minute not too long ago with Stephen L. Harrison and, of course, everybody's favorite Masonic fiction guy. No, not Claudia. Bill Hosler wrote another 50-year member piece called The Westgate and touches on several really neat concepts and things that we've all dealt with. Head on over there and check those out if you get a chance. My thanks again once more to Worshipful Brother Andrew Oxford from the Northern District of the state of Illinois, who was on the show last week. We had his 10 for 10 questions last week, and so do appreciate him coming on the show. If you missed that episode, it may be because it didn't download, because it didn't come out until Monday morning, apparently. We had a little snafu with the published release, so do apologize for that. While you're on the website, wcypodcast.com, please go on over and hover over the Support the Show tab. By doing that, you can then click on Buy a Pin. When you get there, you can buy a lapel pin, you can buy cufflinks, you can buy the money clip or the tie bar. All of those are limited in quantity, so I do want to thank everybody who has been ordering them and supporting this show. That is how we support this show. That is how we pay for the hosting, how we pay for all the equipment we use. That is how everything gets handled. So if the mixer board dies or something, that's how we get a new one. Just to throw that out there and say thank you to everybody who continues to donate, and to those of you who buy a pin and become producers of the program. I do so appreciate it. Tell your friends, tell your profane, tell your candidates, tell your potential members. Check out the show if you're looking for some cool Masonic stuff to help you along and fill the gaps in between your degrees and fill the gaps in between the times you go to lodge, if you're a Mason on the road, whatever the case may be. We just try to make sure that these shows are available to you every day, number 1 all the way up to number 297. We're 3 episodes away from episode 300, and of course this is all made possible by you, the listener, the supporter, the producer. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for allowing me to bring this to you. I cannot thank you guys enough. In addition, you can go to where to shop, and under that you can of course do some shopping. Use our promo codes that are all listed under the various places you can help support the program, mainly by Bankers Best. So if you go to buybankersbest.com, you can grab some cool stuff. Use the promo code BBWCY357 for 20% off, and 50% of the profits from the King Solomon's Reserve comes back to the show. So really stoked about that. Brother Levi's been very generous, so thank you so much. And also our sponsor, onit.com. You can click on our links that takes you to their website. Use the promo code WCY at checkout for 10% off your order, and they throw a little bit back to this show to help support it. Remember, nothing on there is marked up by going through our links. It's the same cost as if you had just gone there to their website, so why not give yourself a deal and help out the show at the same time? And lastly, but not least, you can just make a straight donation. You can donate once to $1, or you can set up recurring donations through PayPal, however you want to do it. Whether it's 50 cents or $1 or $2, whatever it is, it all goes back into the show to help out. So we do just want to thank you once again. Lastly, if you like Masonic podcasts, please check out the Masonic Roundtable going going live every Tuesday at 10/9 Central. We have a lot of fun. We do the show live, and we're there every Tuesday. So if you like Masonic podcasts, why not grab another one? There's several out there now that are just great. I'm so thankful that we've got good Masonic education happening out there, because that's what it's all about. So if you support that, awesome, and thanks for listening. So until next week, stay on the level. For Whence Came You, I'm Robert Johnson.
You've been listening to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry with your host, Brother Robert Johnson. Be sure to join us for our next edition.